Alright, in this video, I'm going to go over the Matplotlib module in Python. So this module is good for plotting things like graphs, anything to analyze your data, things like that. So you can see right here, I have a virtual environment set up. I'll put a link up there, check it out. So first off, we need to install two modules. So do pip install for NumPy and Matplotlib. So I'm going to go ahead and import them. I already did the pip install. You could go ahead and do that. And we're going to do matplotlib.pyplot and then shorthanded as plt. So to make a plot is pretty simple. We could do a fig equals plt.figure. This will generate our figure. And then to create some data, we could say x equals np.arrange. And here we're going to say like 0 to 2 pi, for example, and then increments of 0.1. And then our y value will be the sine function, pass in x. Then inside, we will plot it. So we'll do plt.plot, pass in our arguments, x, y, and then we could specify like what type of plot we want. So here is going to be blue and dashed. And finally, to show it, you need to do plt.show. So if you're using Spider, you don't need the show because it kind of figures that out for you. But if you're using VS Code, you need to make sure you do that. So you can see here we have this plot out, which is our sine wave as we expected. You could change this by having different things. So I ran this twice. So you could have different things like, for example, maybe you want a red and then have some stars, for example. If I run this, you can see that it's going to be stars now. So there's different options you could choose here based on what you want. There's going to be more in the Matplotlib documentation, so check that out. And once you have that, you could do other things. So maybe here we want a second plot. So maybe we want a cosine. Okay, so we could just call the plot function again and then say x, y2, and then maybe here instead of, I'm going to go back to the dashes. So maybe you have a blue and a red one. So if I plot this, you should see two plots show up. So here you have your two plots. And then you could add other things to your plot. So maybe you want to have a x label for your x-axis. So maybe this is your time. And then maybe you have a y-axis called the y label. And maybe this is your amplitude. So if I run this, you can see the x and y axis label will show up, time and amplitude. And maybe you also want to have a title, so you could do plt.title, and I could say my cool plot. And if you run this, you should see a title pop up here, my cool plot. And you could add other things too. So maybe you want a legend, so you could do plt.legend, and then you could pass in as a list. So I'm gonna call sine and cosine respectively, and this should have a legend pop up right here. And then you could also, maybe you want to have a grid on, so you could do plt.grid. Okay, so this will have a grid show up. Okay, so that wraps up how to do some basic plots. There are certain circumstances where you might want to work with subplots. So here we're going to create a new figure, plt equals figure equals plt.figure. And inside we're going to do plt.subplot. So it takes in 3 input arguments. You could either space it out with commas or you could use it directly. So 2, 1, 1. What this means is 2 rows, 1 column, and the last one is which plot you're working with. So this is the first one. So because there's only 2, because of the 2 by 1, you're going to have a first index and a second index. Okay, so this is saying for the first subplot, I'm going to do plt.plot x comma y. So I'm just going to hide this stuff right here because we don't need it. And if you plot this, actually, let me hide this plot too. I only need 1. Okay, so if I run this again, need to add the show. Okay, now if I run it, you should see my first subplot show up. And then you might want to add your second subplot. So you could do plt.subplot. And here 2, 1, 2 will be my second one. And then I call plot again. So plt.plot x comma y2. And if I run this, you should see two plots show up in my top and bottom. Okay, so that wraps up some of the basics for Matplotlib. You learn how to make plots, basic plots, and then working with subplots. Okay, so hopefully that can get you started. And if this helped, give a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.